friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using butterfly kisses and really high five. So I've stamped out the images I'll be using on some Nina Solar White cardstock with black licorice ink, and I'm going to be coloring with my Copic markers. I'm starting with my fox, and for him I'm using YR12, YR14, and YR18. I'm laying in some shadows with the YR18 on the back of his head and then down the back of his body as well. I'm going to do a little bit of shadow on his foot and at the bottom of his tail. And then I'll bring in the YR14 and begin to blend those colors out. I'm making sure to go over the edge of that YR18 and really break up that line. If you wanted to, you could also add in the YR16 to help with the blend. I felt like the YR16 and the YR14 are pretty similar, so I felt comfortable skipping the YR16 today. But then I'm going to move down to the YR12 to fill him in, make sure he has a nice highlight on the top of his head and the front of his body. I'm also going to fill in the rest of his foot and the tail, and then I'll move on to YR000 and YR00 to give a little bit of shading to the white areas. I use the YR00 as the darkest and then the YR000 as the mid-tone, and just let that fade off into the white. I also colored the mouse with these shades and all of the critters' bellies. I'm going to end up changing the mouse a little bit later on. I just thought it was a little bit too one note with his body and his belly being the same color. But anyway, I'm just going to finish those up real quickly and then I'll move on. So I'm taking the E40, E41, E42, and E43 next. I'm going to recolor the mouse just using the lightest three shades there. Just real quick and easy, going over those with these light browns that'll just subdue a little bit of that pinky tone a bit. And then I'm going to color in the bear, starting with the E43 to lay in my shadows. So they will be similar in color, but I'm going to do a double layer on the bear off camera, just so that the saturation is beefed up a bit and he's a bit darker, because I wanted them to look different from each other. I didn't want them to both be the exact same shade. So I started with the E43 and laid in the shadows and then blended out with the E42 and finished him off with the E41. Then I'm moving on to the bunny, and I'm starting with C0 and C1 to just lay in some all over shadows. I'm going to do a little bit more detail on him in a minute, but I just wanted those shadows to be laid in so I don't have to come back and do that later. So I used a C1 and then blended out with the C0 into the white. Also added a little color to the tail. And then I'm going to bring in the C3 and C5, and I want to color this bunny to look like a bunny that I used to have. Her name was Trixie, and she was a lop-eared bunny, so that she had the ears that hang down on the sides. And my family got her at a county fair, and she was like a Dalmatian bunny. She had black spots down her back and a few on her sides. She had black ears and then 2 rings around her eyes. So that's how I wanted to color this little bunny today. So I'm just adding in all of that detail with the C5 and blending it out with the C3. And then if I need to soften that up even further, like the stripe down her back, I'll use a little of the C1 as well. I'll bring in the R20 to color in the insides of the critter's ears and give them some rosy cheeks, and color the noses when they're, not a solid black already. And then I'm going to move on to my first balloon here, and I'm using R22, R24, and R27. I'm going to end up adding in a fourth color, but for right now I'm starting with the R27 down toward the bottom and just creating a little bit of depth, and then I'm blending up where the sun would hit. So the next color is the R24. Then I'm going to bring in the R22. So it's going to be a nice kind of salmon red and have a little bit of a pink undertone to it. And then I will grab the R20 once again and just finish up the tops for a nice highlight. And then off camera, I'm going to begin to color in some of the tiny accessory images. So I'm moving on to the next balloon, and I wanted it to be a shade lighter, so it would be kind of a medium pink tone. So I took away the R27, but I added in the R00. So I started with the R24 this time, and then blended with the R22. And then the R20 will be the next one, and then the R00 will be the highlight. And by the way, I am choosing my color palette to match the pattern paper that I'll be using in a little bit. So the next balloon is Y000, Y11, Y13, and Y15. Y15 is going to be at the bottom and then blending upward with the next shade, which is the Y13. Then I'll fill in a little bit higher with the Y11, and always making sure to leave a nice big area for that highlight shade so that the balloon really takes on that transparent look. And the last color that I'll be adding into my palette here is Aqua. I'll be using BG10, BG11, BG13, and BG15. Now you can sometimes get confused by the BG13 and BG15 caps. The BG13 has a darker cap, but it is a lighter shade of marker. I'm not sure why that is, and sometimes it does confuse me. I just always have to keep that in mind and kind of lay my markers out in the order that I want to use them off to the side so I don't get confused. But I'm laying in the shadow with the BG15 and blending up with the BG13, then using the BG11 and then the BG10. And I did do a double layer on this balloon as well, just to smooth out that blend and really make it look nice and rounded and smooth like a balloon's surface would be. And then I just trim the images out with the matching dies. So now moving on to assemble the magic iris. I've taken the ring die and cut out 3 of those using white cardstock. And then I took this flux capacitor piece, that's what Lawn Fawn calls it, and die cut that out of one of them. I just held that in place with a little low tack tape. I used the post-it tape. Then I'm taking the sausage piece and I die cut 3 of those out of some Spiffy Speckles cardstock. And I'm going to insert those into the slots and then tip them down so that the sausage is in line with the rest of the ring. So it's real quick and easy to do those, to just fit those in. And then you want to hold them in place and add some glue dots. It needs to be the mini glue dots, the 3/16 of an inch size. So I'm going to use my little pokey tool from Tonic to just grab those off and line those up right over the tiny X that the die cuts into the paper. So you need 1 on each of those little X marks the spots. And then you just want to hold those in place and grab another ring and lay that right over top. Now, I was doing this for the very first time on camera. I had never made one of these before, so it took a little bit of fiddling to figure out where to hold it, but it was really simple and easy to do. I didn't cut anything out of the video. So then I'm taking 3 of these little strips that I believe are called the stabilizers. I'm adding some tape runner to the line that the die cut has added to the ring. It's real easy to see. And then I'm going to take the little stabilizers and line those up right over top of that adhesive. The ends are kind of rounded into a semicircle so that they line up perfectly with the inside edge of the die cut. And then I can flip that over. I got a tiny bit of adhesive on my work surface, so I just rubbed that off with my finger. And then I took the tab and I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive about halfway down, and I'm going to line that up with the stabilizer that is facing me and nestle that close together so it creates a little upside down V in that empty space there. Then I'll take my third and final ring and just hold it in place over top of the mechanism. And I'm going to add a little adhesive to the ends of each of those stabilizers and then gently fold them over. It's real easy to do. You just kind of let it fall naturally. You don't want it too close to the inside. So I kind of use the stitching detail as a guide to make sure it doesn't go all the way to. And then there's how the mechanism works. You just pull the tab to the side. It takes a few seconds to figure out where to hold on to it. I find that holding on to one of the stabilizers is a good place to hold. And then you turn the tab and it works perfectly. The last thing to do is just fold in the tabs from the sausage pieces so they don't stick out. And then I can move on to the Magic Iris add-on. I've die cut that out of some Spiffy Speckles pattern paper and use the Simple Stitch hillside border for the green part so I can have a little grass. So I'm going to adhere that down at the bottom with some liquid glue. And then I can grab my images and begin to add them to the scene. So I'm going to have the bear sitting over on the right hand side and the fox running in from the left. Then for my other two critters and the balloons, I kind of had to lay them in place to figure out where I wanted the balloon strings to go because I wanted them to connect to the critter's hands and also to the balloons, and I didn't want anything to be overlapping too far over the top of the add-on and also not covering up really too much of the magic iris. Definitely no adhesive anywhere near the magic iris opening. So it just took a little bit of fiddling to figure out where everything should go. And then once I have the strings and the balloons adhered, then I can add my bunny as well. I'm just going to lift up the end of the curved balloon string so that I can tuck it into the bunny's paws there while that glue is still wet before it dries permanent. And then I'm going to do the same for the right side. I made sure that those balloon strings were adhered down in the correct position. I also didn't want to cover up that little semicircle opening where the tab will be. I definitely want to make sure that tab isn't going to get stuck. So I had to be really careful about filling in those areas and where I had those balloons placed. Then I can add my little mouse. And all that's left is my accessory images to really make this look nice and festive. So I'm going to give each of the critters a party hat. I have two of the ones with the little streamers popping out the top, so I'm going to add those to the bunny and the bear so they're on opposite ends of the card. And then the other little striped hats will go on the mouse and fox, so those are kind of balanced there as well. Then I'm going to take one of the gifts. I only added a tiny bit of glue to that so I could add it into the fox's hands so that there is no glue overlapping the opening of the magic iris at all. And then the other two gifts I'm going to tuck around the bear because I'm imagining that it's his birthday today. So the fox is kind of bringing over his gifts and the others have kind of left theirs for him. I'm taking the little circle that was die cut out of the center of the Magic Iris add-on, and I'm stamping out the sentiment that says, "We flying by to say," and then I'm going to pop in my focal panel and stamp the remainder of the sentiment that says "Happy Birthday" down at the bottom onto that green grassy border. So I stamped that down a couple of times to make sure I had a good impression. And then I popped my card base in my MISTI. It's Lawn Fawn's Mermaid cardstock and Peacock ink. And I'm stamping down the bear and the fox and the sentiment that says "High Five." And I stamped those down twice as well. Those are both from the Really High Five stamp set. Then I'm taking a piece of Hello Sunshine Remix pattern paper. I trimmed that down with my paper trimmer to be exactly 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so it would fit over the entire front of the card. So I'm just going to make sure that that is lined up nice and straight there, and then press that down firmly into place. Then I will grab the little tab add-on from the Magic Iris add-on, and I'm going to adhere that over top of the tab from the Magic Iris. I've also die cut a tiny blue arrow from Spiffy Speckles pattern paper, so I'm going to carefully fill in the arrow die cut with some liquid glue and then just press that down into place right over top so it fits nicely into that little recessed area. Then I'll trim off the rest of the tab so it's nice and flush. Then I'll coat the top of the magic slider in some more of that tape runner adhesive and close up the mechanism so that it's in the closed position as you would want the recipient to receive it. And then make sure that the center portion is lined up as well as the tab on the top right, and press that down into place, and there you can see it in action. So I'm also going to coat the back of the center die cut with more of the tape runner. I'm going to line up the focal panel in the center of the card and then wiggle that down into that space. So I'm going to pop it down and then pull up on the focal panel to make sure that that is adhered right where I want it. Then I'm going to take a tiny thin strip of foam tape and I'm going to add that to both the top and the bottom where it's not going to hinder the mechanism in any way. And that's really all the adhesive that you need to add because it'll be popped up from the center just from the mechanism on its own. So I'll line that up nice and straight with the tab in the open position so I can make sure that the center die cut is in the right space. And there I can kind of lock that into place by pulling the tab up. And there you can see it in action. So that is going to complete my card for today. I'm going to lift that up to the camera so you can see all the detail and give you another peek at the inside. So if you're somebody who's intimidated by interactive cards like I am, I just wanted to let you know that this was the very first time that I created with this die. I showed you guys start to finish. I did not practice beforehand because I wanted to give you a true look of how easy it is to put these dies together. So hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. You can also ring the notification bell if you want to be sure that my videos always end up in your feed. And if you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought might also interest you. You could click on either one of those to check them out. I hope you all have an amazing day. Bye-bye.